All right. So, like I said on the Drop Your Baggage podcast, we talk to people that are dope, that can give you hope and also teach you a technique that can help you cope. And that technique is mental and emotional release. And today we're going to do something a little different. Usually I help not clients, but I help people on the podcast release anger, sadness, or fear. But Stephanny here is throwing a curveball at me right before the podcast began. And she said that she wanted to release, like, what would you say, the fear of like disappointing
The
someone?
fear of being wrong.
The fear of being wrong. I'm like, that's not usually a fear that people have. I asked her, okay, go ahead and focus on what that would make you feel, and she said it would feel shame. So we're going to release shame today on the podcast. This is a first, and I'm so excited to do so. But first of all, I want to let all of you guys know to please do not try this by yourself. Meditating is a great technique, as Stephanny just said, with a breathing exercise. That's also a sort of meditation. But if you are going to do this specific technique, please consult with a neurolinguistic programming or a certified practitioner of neurolinguistic programming. I am not a psychologist or a therapist or a social worker or a counselor like that. That you can go to Stephanny for that, but well, not anymore. Never. But yes, please go to someone. And if you want to learn more about this technique, go to Eliminating Insecurities Now. Once again, that is Eliminating Insecurities Now. Now, with eliminating shame, why do you want to eliminate shame? Why do you want to release or process shame, I should say, instead of eliminate?
I think shame, well, generally speaking, shame is usually a big barrier to most humans overall, because shame just feels extremely uncomfortable. And for the most part, we don't really know what shame feels like because we don't spend a lot of time recognizing it. But I know that for me, in my own path, in my own journey, growing up just culturally with the Hispanic background, it was just like a lot of shame-based stuff. There's a lot of like joking, and you get a lot of nicknames, and like, and all of it isn't a joking, like good way, I guess. But in the end, when we break down what's actually happening, it's like a form of bullying, right? And bullying, all that is shaming. And so I think for the longest time, I've carried shame. And so if something happens, I always feel like I've done something wrong, or like there's something wrong with me, right? And kind of like that belief of like, I'm not good enough that I shared earlier, like that's always kind of hovering around. And so I noticed that shame stops me a lot of the times, that the fear of feeling shame or something, doing something wrong, making a mistake, right? That it's, it does stop me, especially now, like in my business where I'm growing and expanding, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to say something that makes somebody else mad, right? It's that fear of experiencing shame or that resistance towards shame. So I see that it still gets in my way when I want to take risks and I want to do something different, right? So yeah, that's a big part of why I think shame is a good emotion that I would like to release. It shows up in everywhere. It shows up in my relationship sometimes where I don't want to admit that I was wrong. And so I try to avoid it in every kind of way. But it creates a lot of issues too, because it puts your brain into this blaming mode, right? And so you either blame yourself for everything or you blame the world outside of you for everything. And that doesn't serve anybody, right? It's taking that responsibility. So yeah, shame is just an emotion that has its value, but that is inappropriate for most situations.
Yeah, 100%. And with you taking on this new career and getting off the beaten path of what you were supposed to do, there definitely can be a lot of fear of being wrong and the shame that goes with not doing what your parents wanted and what the culture wanted and what everybody expected you to do. It's like, well, they probably had something to say about that, if you will. So like now the pressure is on for you to succeed as well. Or do you feel that pressure?
Not necessarily to succeed. I think in the beginning I did feel that pressure. I think now it's more, I have stepped into that space of like, it's inevitable that I'm going to succeed. It feels good. I know that I'm not going to like lose everything that I have. I'm not going to end up homeless on the street, like even though my brain wants to tell me that that's what's going to happen. I know that that's not going to happen. but it's more of just like I want to be free, right? You know, I think our emotions sometimes cage us in, and I wholeheartedly believe that shame, guilt, and helplessness are one of the biggest emotions that create these mental cages for us to
Yeah.
stuck in.
Big time, big time. Let's go ahead and release that shame today. With the mental and emotional release process, all you have to do, we went over this before. All you have to do is three things. Number one, you need to use your imagination. Most importantly, you have to follow directions. I always say this, so no offense, but if you do your own thing, you're going to screw it up. So
Mhm.
every word that I say is very important. So please follow directions. Number three is to trust the process. Know that I'm your guide and I'm going to be leading you through this easily and effortlessly. And we created your timeline, your past. If your past could be to your left, to your right, or behind you, where's your past?
Behind me,
Where's your future?
in front of me.
Perfect. Now, the most important thing that we're going to be doing right now is changing our negative thought patterns to positive thought patterns. So we're going to be observing events, and the negative thoughts about that event do not matter. In order to make true change, in order to truly change your perspective, your life around like how you feel around shame, you have to see things through, or you have to change that negative thought pattern to a positive thought pattern. So the learnings that you have and the empathy that you have and the compassion that you have for yourself and others is so important. It's so important. And I'll remind you of that. But if you really, really want to make true change, those thoughts that cause you to be to feel shameful, you want to switch those over to a truth of empathy, of acceptance, of forgiveness for yourself and others. Cool.
Cool.
Awesome. So, is it all right with your unconscious mind for you to release this shame today and for you to be aware of it consciously?
Yes.
Awesome. What is the root cause of this problem? The first event, which when disconnected will cause this problem to disappear. If you were to know, what was the first time that you felt shame when you were a little girl?
Hmm. I want to say I was probably around 6. I was in elementary school. Um, I my first language was Spanish, so I grew up only speaking Spanish. And so when I started kindergarten and first grade, I didn't know the language, so I didn't know any English. And I felt really scared and confused a lot of the times. And I remember this time I went into the boys' bathroom because I didn't know what the sign meant, right? And I went to the boys' bathroom. I went in there, I saw a boy, and I was like, oh, I can't be in here. And rolled out of the boys' bathroom nonchalantly and tried to make my way over to the girls' bathroom without anybody noticing me. But lo and behold, one of the boys saw me and started laughing and making fun
Hmm.
of me for being in the boys' bathroom. And I don't remember if I cried, but I did remember feeling that heavy shame of like, oh, I'm being laughed at. There's something wrong with me. I did something wrong. This, I'm so dumb kind of thing.
Hmm.
And so, funnily enough, like that memory has always been there. I always remember it in the back of my
Hmm.
head, and I think that that's probably the first time where I felt shame
Yeah.
that came. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really, really good one. First of all, because it's so vivid in your mind, but second of all, because it's so young. You see, like that's the root cause. That's where it all started, and then just
Mm-hmm.
boom, it goes from there. That's
Mm-hmm.
excellent. All right, you can go. Let's go ahead and get ready. Let's do the process. So you can go ahead and close your eyes and relax, and let me know when you're ready for the process to drop your baggage.
Okay, I'm ready.
Awesome. Now, just imagine floating up above your timeline and float deeper and deeper and deeper into the past, above that first event in which you felt shame when you were just a little girl, and hover above that little girl and see yourself and those boys in the bathrooms and everything that was in the event, just like it was like a TV show. Let me know when you can see that little girl.
I can see her.
Can you see everyone else in the event as well?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Now just stay right there, being the observer of the event in that position. Now, just ask your unconscious mind what it needs to learn from the event. the learning of which will allow you to let go of the emotions easily and effortlessly. Your unconscious mind can preserve the learnings so that if you need them in the future, they'll be there. Just tell your unconscious mind to preserve the learnings. What is something positive and empowering you can tell that little girl with the consciousness that you have today that will allow the emotions to evaporate like water on the concrete on a hot summer day? Once again, very importantly, what is something positive and empowering you can tell that little girl and everyone involved in the event with the consciousness that you have today that would allow the emotions to evaporate like water on the concrete on a hot summer day? And as you preserve these learnings, the emotions are starting to dissipate more and more until they're all gone. Just let me know when they're all gone.
Okay.
Awesome. Now, once again, the most important thing about this whole exercise is the positive thought pattern. So now let me know, what did you learn? With your eyes closed and with you looking at that little girl and everyone else involved in the event, what did you learn?
I learned that I was blaming myself. I didn't have I didn't have any um, resentment or anger or even like the shame attached to like the boys that left. It was the connection I had to myself. I learned that I didn't have to beat myself up. How did I expect myself to know something that I never learned? And that it's okay.
Mm-hmm. And looking at that little girl and the whole event from the consciousness that you have now, what learning will help you in the future?
I'm supposed to make mistakes. I'm not a know-it-all. I don't know everything.
That's right. Now, just imagine floating up above your timeline and float deeper and deeper and deeper into the past, above the dinosaurs during the prehistoric age. Let me know when you're above the dinosaurs.
Okay, I think I'm there.
Awesome. Now, as you're above the dinosaurs during the prehistoric age, float deeper and deeper into space to where space and the atmosphere connects. And imagine your timeline is the size of a fingernail. Let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
All right. I'll just float there, weightless, in space. And now ask yourself, where are the emotions? Tell me, are they there or have they disappeared now?
Yeah, I don't have them.
Awesome. Now, just imagine floating down inside the event, seeing through your own eyes as a little girl, and check on the emotions. Tell me, are they there or have they disappeared now?
They're not there.
Awesome. Float back above the dinosaurs and then float into space to where space and the atmosphere connects. Let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
All right. Listen very, very closely. Float very, very high above your timeline, above each and every event in which you felt shame from birth until now in chronological order. Don't skip one event that has a charge on it. Preserve the learnings and let go of all the shame all the way back to now. Take your time. Go.
Okay.
All gone?
All gone.
Awesome. Float down into your body and open your eyes when you're ready.
I'm back.
Welcome back. How does that feel?
That feels so calming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like so light, right? Just like, I don't know. Just like so freeing, so light. That was a really good exercise. Yeah, I'm like, I don't even know what to say about it. It's just kind of gone.
All right, let's test it out. Can you smell bacon?
Can I smell bacon right now?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. That's a NLP technique to help you break state. Uh,
Oh.
uh, can you remember a time in the past in which you used to feel that old emotion? And go back and notice if you can feel it, or you may find that you cannot.
I mean, I think of old situations where it was easily accessible, and now it's not. It's not there anymore. That's nice. I like that.
Awesome. I want you to imagine going out into the future to an unspecified time in the future, which, if it would have happened in the past, you would have felt shame. And see if you can find that old emotion, or you may find that you cannot.
No. Yeah, nothing
Congratulations.
comes up.
Congratulations. You just released a bunch of shame.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was amazing.
So a lot of the people that are listening right now have never experienced this. So can you kind of put it in words on what you just went through?
So it felt like going back and making sense of the situation and like taking that observer stance and being able to simply acknowledge the facts of the situation without any judgment. Um, and once the judgment was removed, the shame like disappeared. Yeah. And as I went through other parts of my timeline and just looked at things very objectively, the shame continued to disappear. Yeah.
Uh, was were some of those things hard to look at first?
Um, Not necessarily. I think I've done a lot of my own work around shame.
Of course. Yes.
So they weren't hard to look at them, but I could pinpoint them really easily.
Yeah.
Where I could call them out and be like, "Oh, that's it." And I like have done a lot of work to recognize shame, so I could identify it. So I could identify it, and so going through the timeline and kind of scanning through to apply that objective perspective to each situation. It was kind of simple to be able to jump from one to the other and recognize, oh, that's the shame that I felt. Why did I feel it? Where was it coming from? Oh, it wasn't true. It didn't make sense. It was inappropriate. Moving forward.
What I've noticed about this technique is that the observer role helps a whole lot. So you're not like going back into it and re-traumatizing yourself and trying to make sense of everything like while you're in it. Because that's how I usually see things, and how most people usually see things is through first person point of view and how you experienced it. So that observer role of you being disconnected from it and seeing the whole event objectively really helps. But like you said, it's like, okay, now objectively, that little girl, like she just made a mistake. You know what I mean? And she didn't have to be hard on herself. And like it had nothing to do with the boys. Was that one of the first times that you like thought that before?
I think I've known that, but I just never articulated it.
Yeah.
Because I knew that it wasn't, whenever I would think about it, it was always about like me and, being in my little shame bubble. But it had nothing really to do with the boys and what they did. It was more of just like, I was like, kind of like encapsulated into this shame bubble. And that's really what the majority of my memory was the shame of coming out and feeling that sensation all over my body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your relationship with yourself now, seeing like that you went through your timeline. How many events do you think you had in your timeline? Or
That where I felt shame?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot, but there's probably only like 5 that really stood out that I kind of honored on the way through, because I was like, okay, if those are the ones that are coming up, those are the ones that need this.
Exactly.
Versus trying to like scan through
Right.
all of my timeline, right?
Right. So just think like you had like five little, like not five little, but five breakthroughs in this one session.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So how do you feel like your relationship with yourself will change in the future, seeing those five major events in a different way?
I think I will be more, not, I want to say lenient, but like being able to step into that observer role and just look at what's happening versus all of my own interpretations and evaluation. Moving forward, I won't feel so hesitant to take risks, to say things without a filter, to communicate with people in a way that, again, I feel is my duty to, like the way that I can communicate the knowledge that I know. So it's not censored. So it's not vague and, trying to appease everyone. The people pleasing stuff needs to go away. So, so I think with the shame kind of dissipating a bit, or completely actually, because it's not there anymore, it gives me that freedom to just do whatever I think is going to be good for me.
Yeah.
Or for my clients,
Yeah. I love having your perspective with you being like a clinical psychologist, because you, like you said, you've done the work, you can spot these things, you can feel it. And now it's like you see like, oh man, my mindset was this was my thought pattern, and now this is the new thought pattern. What's the major thought pattern that you got? Like, what was the major theme that you had to have throughout your timeline too?
I think the major, like the one that stood out was like, you're supposed to make mistakes.
Yeah.
You weren't supposed to know.
Yeah.
This was supposed to happen, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that even coming to the future where I'm at now, or the present where I'm at now, is like, yeah, I'm supposed to not know these things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to, fall on my face a couple times, and all the failures are supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And so it's fine. Everything's fine.
That's huge. Like as an entrepreneur, we're supposed to fail forward, and we're only doing the best that we can with the resources and consciousness that we have. So the resources we have plenty of course, but the consciousness part, and that's where we get through coaches. You know what I mean? Like I definitely invested in some coaches and consultants through books and courses. That's where the consciousness comes from, and that's how we advance. But until then, we just fail forward and keep making mistakes until we become more proficient at our craft.
Yeah. And I mean, it gets me to a place of kind of understanding that I'm not supposed to know it all, right? Like there's so much to know, and I'm not going to be able to know it all. And that's okay. And I don't actually want to know it all. It's a lot of work to know things. So if I don't know, it's like, oh, I don't know that. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's it. Like that's it. That's period.
Like there's nothing else to be said. That's it. I love it.
It's okay. I don't know it. It's fine.
Hey, but I'm willing to learn though. I'm willing to test and I'm willing to experiment and learn, which is the best part. Like, I'm not supposed to know, and the only way that I can know is by going out there and fucking doing it. Yeah.
And that's a great perspective to add on to it. I think kind of like to the phrase like, I'm not supposed to learn, but I'm willing to learn. That actually sparks a much, like, I don't know, inclusive thought. And I like it because that just leaves space to be a learner for the rest of your life and not feel shame. I think a lot of us get to a peak and we're like, oh, well, I should know everything. I'm the expert in this field. And then someone comes along and teaches you something, and why not take it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're like, what? I thought I wrote the book on this. Like,
Exactly. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Of course. This was so fun. I really enjoyed it. I've always been kind of a skeptic with things, and this is my very logical, almost black and white thinking, right, that I had to break out of, but like kind of a skeptic with hypnotherapy and neurolinguistic, programming and all these other modalities. But in the end, everything works. And I'm
Mm.
starting to learn that everything works. It's just what you decide to let work,
Mm-hmm.
that it will work for you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm a very big fan of this ancient guy from Palestine. They called him Jesus, and he used he used some very he used faith
Uh-huh.
as the biggest healer. Like, so just people had so much faith in this guy that they would touch him and then they would just become healed. Or like they had so much faith in him that, whatever they wanted to manifest, that it would happen. Like the was it the centennial, the soldier that came to him saying, "Hey, my daughter's sick, I need your help." He's like, "Bro, go home, your faith has already helped her." So like, even
Yeah.
things like that, it's like all these different modalities can definitely work with an open mind, but also the most powerfully, the belief that it can work.
Yeah. And that's really what faith comes down to be, is just our belief. And
100%.
it's so powerful. And it's so, so powerful. But
Hell yeah.
yeah,
Hell yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, hell yeah, I got you, girl.